Mhm. Right. Good evening and welcome to the Scarborough Board of Education Business Meeting. The date is March 5th, 2026. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Ray, can we please call the attendance?
Yes, Ms. Jacobs,
Here.
Mr. Kelleher,
Present.
Ms. Lindstrom,
Here.
Ms. Mauer,
Here.
Mr. Rockenstein. Here. Ms. Tarpinian,
Here.
Mr. Peony Huff,
Here.
Mr. Skeena,
Here.
Ms. Claret.
Here.
All right, thank you so much. Agenda item 2.0 is resignations, retirements, and new hires. 2.1 is the February 2026 report. This is no board action, just to bring to your attention to review the materials in your board packet. Okay. Agenda item 3.0 are adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments this evening?
I have none.
Did you say yes?
No.
Oh, you have none. Thank
No.
you. Agenda item 4.0 is the Spotlight Award presentation. 4.1 is the student recognition. So for this, we'll invite Abby and Sarah.
Yeah, so our March 2026 Student Spotlight Award goes to Natalie Morgenbesser. And she was nominated by Miss Shoop, who has volunteered to say some words about Natalie.
You are going to put up, yes, okay, so this I will give to everyone to read for themselves. One of the things that you can't really see from a resume or a list of things that, you know, people might do is how genuinely kind Natalie is. I think of all of the character, when my husband and I started having children, I said, I really just hope they're kind. Jury is still out on that one, but I know it when I see it. And Natalie is so kind and so caring, and has a very strong moral center. And it's just such a delight and a privilege to have people like Natalie in the lives of our students and in my own life. So thank you. Well deserved.
Would you like to say, Natalie, would you like to say a few words? You're welcome to.
Thank you so much. And I'm just honored to be a part of this community and have so much support. And thank you all to all you do behind the scenes. I'm sure you also might go unnoticed, or not, sorry, not that I'm unnoticed. Clearly not, but the words magister. Anyway, but thank you all. And yeah, I'm happy to be here tonight.
Oh, congratulations, Natalie. All right, agenda item 5.0 are presentations, and 5.1 is the Scarborough High School Leadership and Community Service Clubs. And so for this, we'll invite Michael Gage and Nicole Marceau up here.
Well, thanks again for having us, and a few of our club advisors couldn't make it this evening, so I'll fill in from time to time reading their reports that they submitted. And the first one being our student council, who is run by Brianna Krusky and Sarah Belton, who couldn't be here this evening, so I'll read what they sent. Scarborough High School Student Council is a representative body composed of 16 students with 4 representatives from each grade level and elected officers. The council works with school administration to represent student voice while promoting service, respect, and leadership within the school community. This year, the Student Council organized its work through 3 standing committees focused on culture, climate, student concerns, and fundraising. These committees allow students to address issues affecting the student body, strengthen the school community, and raise funds for the Student Assistance Fund. For the 2025-2026 school year, the Student Council identified several key goals. Advocate for student concerns related to school climate, including bathroom cleanliness and safety, increase engagement and participation during Fall Spirit Week, continue regular meetings with administration to share feedback and discuss solutions, maintain and monitor the student feedback box that was implemented 2 years ago, and raise funds to support the Student Assistance Fund. To work towards these goals, the Student Council has held regular meetings with school administration to share concerns and collaborate on possible solutions. Recent conversations have included student facility concerns as well as ideas to improve and streamline the sign-up and sign-out process for students with senior privileges. To gather broader student input, the council conducted 2 student surveys this year. One focused on Fall Spirit Week and another on facility concerns to collect quantifiable feedback from the student body. The Student Council also partnered with the Civil Rights Club to discuss bathroom-related concerns and collaborated with Sources of Strength to help increase engagement during Fall Spirit Week. Members continue working with administration to develop ideas to make next year's Spirit Week even more engaging. The Student Council also successfully planned and hosted Homecoming Pep Rally. This year, new games were added to increase opportunities for student participation, and all school clubs and sports teams were formally recognized during the event. In addition, the Student Council also proposed increasing the use of the school mascot, Stormy, at sporting events as another way to build school spirit and strengthen community connections. Dr. Neto knows about Stormy too.
I do.
For the second half of the school year, the Student Council has proposed several fundraisers that will support Students Assistance Fund. Looking ahead, the Student Council will also coordinate class officer and student council elections for the 2026-2027 school year. Members will continue to collaborating with administration to address student concerns and improve school events, including future Spirit Weeks. The council concludes the year by creating signs to celebrate graduating seniors at the final school assembly in June. Over the past 2.5 years, Student Council has worked to reestablish itself as a strong representative voice for Scarborough High School students. The council remains committed to sharing student perspectives while helping build a positive and inclusive school community. We'd like to thank the Athletic and Student Activities Department and Principal Terrio for their continued support. So that was Student Council. RSVP, Ms. Shoup.
I'm at this stage in my life.
Welcome.
I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to read to you the write-up that was written by our officers, Natalie Morgenbesser, Eleonora DeVries, and Nova Root. Our goals for this year are to promote safety and equity in the school for all students, educate students and teachers about consent and how to have and maintain healthy boundaries, and educate students about their Title IX rights. Things that we have accomplished this year: we produced a video released as a Tuesday tutorial. Those are weekly videos that the instructional coaches put out to help with pedagogy and technology, and also the library services puts them out to talk about things that are happening in our Learning Commons. And the 4th week of the monthly rotation for the instructional coaches is something we call Out and About. So things like the help desk and RSVP, et cetera. We produced a video for teachers and staff about how to have healthy boundaries with students, both physical, verbal, and relationship boundaries, and they are rooted in the school board policy that was actually sent out with the video. And then the Leadership Council liked it so much that they use it at the different schools, so that was exciting. We have held a meeting with Mr. Grogan and Mr. Terrio to talk about the school system for reporting sexual assault and harassment and ways it could be improved to be more accessible for students and not so intimidating. We also held another meeting with Mr. Grogan and Mr. Ferreira to discuss Title IX in sports so we can better understand the system, and brought forth some concerns from student athletes who needed clarification and to create a nice relationship between Mr. Ferreira, Mr. Grogan, and the students. In December, we hosted a two-day leadership conference for I believe this is the 14th time working with Maine Boys to Men. This relationship started in 2016, and it was brought forth by the club was really begun because a community member came to the then superintendent and the school board and said, you know, we've got to help our kids so that everybody's gender is healthy and they understand how to move around in society. And so this two-day leadership conference, which is held here at Town Hall, had about 30 students and is actually led by the student leaders. Projects in progress right now, we'll be putting up posters in the school locker rooms, of course, with administrative approval, to tell students about their Title IX rights and explain what Title IX is. We'll be asking coaches if we can come to practices and take a few minutes to talk with female athletes and any athlete about what Title IX means for them. We are currently developing a fundraiser to support domestic violence groups and also groups that support students in understanding dating violence. And we have created a draft, both of a website for students about Title IX and also drafted a form that could be used to semi-anonymously report sexual assault and harassment. That is obviously very much still in the works because that requires a lot. They're in the works, we're constantly improving them, and we just want to make things accessible for our student body in a process that can be very difficult and emotional. We're also very excited to announce that Maine Boys to Men has a statewide fellowship program. It's the inaugural program. This is the very first group, and there were 12 students from across the state who were accepted into the fellowship. And it's very hard to say fellowship without saying Fellowship of the Ring. I just want to say that. I feel like they should have named it something else. 12 students statewide were accepted into the fellowship, and 2 of them are from Scarborough. One is Harper Lyford, and the other one is Liam Goebel Shup. What's up? Okay, so it's about teaching boys and young men how to intervene in situations, what consent looks like, and how to challenge harmful and limiting gender stereotypes. And all the people involved are male identifying freshmen through juniors, because seniors are obviously phasing out, from throughout the state. They'll do day-long programs, meetups, weekend retreats, monthly Zoom calls, and they're going to spend a year together as a cohort exploring connection, masculinity, identity, and power through dialogue, experience, and mentorship. And that is RSVP.
Okay, Interact Club with Deb Peace.
Hey there, I'm Deb Pease and I'm the advisor to the Interact Club, and I'm going to let the 2 students introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Grace Mike. I'm the president. Hi, I'm Isabella Del Rosso. I'm vice president.
And I would like to point out that this is the 2nd year that they've both stepped up and been elected as president and vice president. So what the Interact Club is, so I'm Deb Pease. I'm a Rotarian here in the Scarborough community, and I am the club advisor for the Interact Club. So the Interact Club is a Rotary-sponsored service club. The goals are to build leadership skills and confidence, to connect with the community leaders, and to have fun while serving their communities. A little thought as to how I got involved. I've been doing this for about 12 years now, and I've done community service and different volunteer work. And I looked at the next generation and said, you know, we don't see so much of that. And why is that? And I thought, you know, we teach them math, we teach them science, we have all of that, but we don't teach them how rewarding volunteering is. So I thought, you know, you can't really complain if you don't step up and do it. So I stepped up to be the volunteer advisor to the Interact Club. So Interact is worldwide through the Rotary Club. There are about 14,000 clubs around the world and 342,000 interactors in 145 countries. So it isn't just a local organization. The club elects their own officers. They organize and plan their club meetings and events. This is sort of the reverse of what would happen at a club meeting, in that the girls, with the president, vice president, be doing the presentation. I just help them out. So my goals as an advisor is to just help facilitate and assist the students as needed, and hopefully pass along, from my perspective, the joy of volunteering and helping others. The students take the lead, they shape the club, they pick what they want to do, and then they do the planning for the different events and activities that they're going to do throughout the community. They learn organizational skills and planning and how to follow through. I think that's another hard thing. You sign up, you have to show up. So they have to organize their schedules and know that if they've signed up to help in a particular event, that they have to do that. A quick list of some of the things that they have done throughout the years. Throughout the year, they volunteer, and for 20 hours, they earn a pin, which they're allowed to wear on their graduation sash. So if they have done Interact for all 4 years and done 20 hours each year, the Rotary Club sponsors them to have a pin that they could wear on their graduation sash. Some examples of what they've done: they've made blankets for Project Linus. They've helped with pumpkin carving with community services. They attended the senior citizens dinner last year with a display and helped serve the meals, and they plan to attend the senior citizen dinner again this year. They helped with Race to the Point, doing some face painting and organization for the PTO organization. They have volunteered with Maine Narrow Gauge Railroad, doing the pumpkin train and the Polar Express. They have run a food drive earlier in the year for the Scarborough Backpack Program, when a lot of students' families were having difficulty with the food issue. They've helped with Santa in the Park, doing a food drive for the Scarborough Community Food Pantry. They assisted a short time ago with Project Grace with the fuel rally, which, kudos to Project Grace. The last number I heard was $31,000 they raised for that fuel assistance program. They have assisted Rotary in selling Christmas trees, which we use to send students to RILA, which is a Rotary Youth Leadership Camp at Camp Hines, and to give high school scholarships. So they help us with that. One of the things that they have developed a great joy to do is they play bingo and do crafts with the residents at Scarborough Terrace, usually with a holiday theme. They'll do little craft projects and bingo with some prizes for the different holidays, and they're off next week with a St. Patrick's Day event. They've made cards and candy bags for Halloween, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, and St. Patrick's Day that they distributed to the Veterans Home, to Scarborough Terrace, and the Enclave. So that is just sort of in the last 12 months or so of the things that they've done, and a very active group of students, and I think have discovered the joy of volunteering. And hopefully these two, who are headed off to college, will join a Rotaract club, which is the next step in Rotary, is to go into a Rotaract club through their colleges.
Okay, the next club is Key Club, and Chris Eldridge and Yvette Baroni are the co-advisors for that. And they couldn't be here tonight, so they sent this. The SHS Key Club is an extension of Kiwanis International. It's a service organization dedicated to supporting our local community while building leadership, empathy, and a commitment to volunteerism among students. This year, our club includes over 150 student members, whom we connect with a wide range of volunteer opportunities throughout the year. We encourage members to complete at least 50 hours of service annually, with up to 20 of those coming from volunteer work outside of the club-sponsored activities. Each year, our members participate in a variety of community service projects. One of our favorite traditions is raking leaves for local residents who may not be able to manage their yards themselves. We also volunteer with the Maine Narrow Gauge Railroad for their pumpkin trains and Polar Express events. where students interact with families and help create a welcoming experience for visitors while strengthening their communication and leadership skills. Key club members also support younger students in our community by working at Wentworth School through their reading team program. In addition, we run a year-long clothing drive to benefit Maine Needs and donate animal toys and blankets to the Animal Refuge League. Throughout the year, we organize fundraisers and bake sales to raise money for Camp Sunshine, which supports children with life-threatening illnesses and their families. Another meaningful partnership is with Scarborough's Functional Life Skills Classroom. Each Thursday, our students help host visitors from the Morrison Center for lunch, and members also volunteer there on half-days throughout the year. This year, we are also partnering with Strive in South Portland on Friday evenings, and will participate in their annual Strive Rocks overnight fundraiser in May. In addition, our students organized a food drive to support families affected by increased ice activity in Maine. Members also assisted with several community events, including Race to the Point and the Kiwanis Fishing Derby, along with many additional service projects organized by our student leadership team. Our club is student-led with 5 elected officers who run meetings and approximately 20 board members who organize and lead our various service projects. Looking ahead, we hope to continue expanding membership and connecting students with even more service opportunities, including opportunities during the summer months. We'd like to thank the Athletic and Activities Department for their continued help and support. National Honor Society is Amy LaBelle is the advisor and couldn't attend this evening. The National Honor Society is an organization that recognizes high school students who excel in scholarship, leadership, service, and character. The NHS was founded in 1921 and has chapters in schools around the world. All juniors and seniors who have enrolled for a minimum of 4 academic quarters at Scarborough High School and have a cumulative grade point average of at least 92% unweighted or 96% weighted are notified for their eligibility for selection in the first quarter of their junior or senior year. Eligible students may then complete the NHS application, where students share information about their leadership activities and volunteer service. At least 30 hours are required. Students must also submit a personal statement and include a teacher recommendation. The final selection of members is determined by vote of the faculty council. Every fall, there is an induction ceremony during which current NHS members introduce newly elected members. All members must complete an additional 20 hours of community service and maintain their academic standing each year to remain active in the NHS. The NHS sponsors various programs throughout the year where students demonstrate their leadership and character by completing community service projects and/or raising money for local charities. Examples of these programs include food drives for the South Portland Food Cupboard, collecting warm clothing and creating hygiene kits for Maine Needs, selling candy grams and lemonade to benefit the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital, sponsoring a yearly volleyball tournament and acknowledging all SHS teachers with personalized cards, and a breakfast during Teacher Appreciation Week in early May. NHS students also volunteered to give tours during 8th grade parent night, the 8th grade student transition program, and fall open house. We'd like to thank the Athletic and Activities Department and Principal Terrio for their continued support. That is all of the clubs this evening. So thank you for having us again tonight, and we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Is there any comments or any questions for Mike or anyone? Sure, please.
So I want to say I'm really excited about how we're looking at different clubs and activities that are going on in the school this year. and learning about all of the incredible things the student body is involved with and how important and impactful they are. So like whether it's representation, whether you're educating fellow students on sort of the policies that are going on, involved in sort of service organizations that are really will set you up for the rest of your life with the kind of the knowledge and experience that you need to become really good participating community members that really support a whole lot of programs. And then obviously we like academic scholarship. That's one of the primary goals of education. Just thinking about all of the work that you've done and all of the incredible things that you're involved with and how proud we are of you. And it's easy to throw up, and other organizations get a lot of credit for things that are really easy to see. It's really hard to explain when you put together a program and then you have to think about how to implement it with a student body of your peers. It's difficult to go out there and then make, whether it's a video education, I think I heard that was created, whether you're writing, you're involved in different scholarship programs or fellowship programs, or whether you're creating any of these projects. They're invisible, right? But they're so important because they drive such a high level of quality, and they allow, like one of the things that I heard is allowed all the students to really have a voice and participate in sort of their educational environment. And so like the culture that you're creating and the people who are doing a lot of that work to create that culture are you. And that work is sometimes invisible and it's not seen and it's not celebrated in the same way that other more visible things are sometimes. But it is so critically important. And we so appreciate all the things you're doing.
Thank you, Fred. For me, this night, all of these nights that we do are always really meaningful and really important to me. I love that we get to recognize our students and see the good work that you're doing outside of the classroom. And this night probably is a little bit more meaningful for me because when I talk about my values and the things that are really meaningful to me and are my North Stars and that guide my work, the number one outside of my family is being of service. And you, I had that first experience when I was probably your age in high school, and I would volunteered at a local hospital, and it was my first opportunity to really do that. And fast forward just a couple of years, not too many, just a couple of years later, and here I am and doing this work. And this is it's a labor of love, and the opportunity to give back of your time and your talents is really, really meaningful work. And so thank you for all you do. I especially love that you call bingo. I too call bingo, and it's a lot of fun for senior citizens. So I'm so glad that to hear the work you're doing. And I learned something new tonight. I didn't know that there was a connection with Rotary and with Kiwanis. So that was new information for me for the Interact and the Key Club. So I appreciate that you're here. I appreciate that we get the opportunity to learn from you as well. And thank you for all you're doing. And thank you for the adults for leading and directing them. This is a lot of work. And so thank you. Great. Have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone wants to stay for the fun.
I know. See, Kate, it's not just you. Yeah. Oh, gosh. All right, agenda item 6.0 is the superintendent's report. So for this, we'll turn it over to Diane.
Sure. Good evening. To start our superintendent's report out this month, as we always do, this is our overall student enrollment. You can see that, our enrollment overall is staying steady. I would also just put a shout out for this is the time for kindergarten enrollment for the coming year. We are on track. We actually pulled the data so that we could take a look at where we are this year compared to where we've been in the past 3 years. And we're pretty consistent. At our last check, that was at the start of this week or maybe last week. All the days are kind of running together at this point. We had 143 kindergarten students pre-registered. And so if you know someone who has a child who's going to turn 5 by October 15th, we want to know who they are. We want to hear from them, and we would love for them to pre-register for school. so that, they can come and be screened and we can start thinking ahead. So, put a little plug in there. I also just want to extend my appreciation to Town Hall. I don't know if you have noticed or not, but our kindergarten enrollment information is on our signage up front on a revolving basis, and that was a first-year thing. And thank you to Cheryl for helping to make that happen. I think, certainly that is another way that as people are driving along, they pay attention to some of those things. And so perhaps that might help some folks to know a little bit more about where we are and what we're doing. The next piece that I wanted to share with you is actually a video about a news story that I believe I did email the board about earlier in the week, but I also wanted to take a moment before we play the video just to kind of cue it up. Katarina Ausbach, who is a senior, was selected to be a delegate to the United States Senate Youth Program. I believe I may have told you about this a couple of months ago when she actually received the nomination, but because it is literally right around the corner, we were contacted by Channel 8 News, and they wanted to do a news story on Katarina as well as the other student who was selected. And so it's a great little news clip if we could cue that up.
Comcast Business Advanced Networking and Security Solutions help turn businesses into logistics mastering, supply chain transforming, seamlessly restocking, frictionless paying, poke bowl ordering, cyber securing, mobile access granting, data managing. Welcome to the worlding
But we should.
modern businesses. Powering the engine of modern business, Comcast Business.
Back here tonight, 6 and 2 Maine students have now been selected to represent our state this month at the U.S. Senate Youth Program in Washington, D.C.
Jamie Agelet sat down with both of those bright teens before their big trip to talk about what this opportunity means to them and how it might shape their future in politics.
Maine's future leaders are all around us, one of them inside Scarborough High School.
Katarina, a senior and district governor of the Key Club, is heading to Washington, D.C. for the U.S. Senate Youth Program.
I was very determined going into it, this is something that I want to do my senior year. It just felt like the perfect opportunity.
She's one of only 2 students selected from the state. Wan Ting, a senior at the Maine School of Science and Mathematics, will join her. She's the Youth Council representative for the League of Women Voters and also founded an online program for learning new languages.
I'm really humbled to know, I got it, even though there's so many passionate and qualified students that were applied and also as finalists.
After filing a lengthy application and succeeding in a rigorous round of interviews and speech writing, Wan Ting and Katarina will be flown to the Capitol this month.
I'm hoping to gain a deeper understanding and policy making and leadership and just the reality of public service.
I think one huge thing is going to be meeting other people, other students like me who are also so passionate about government and policy. And I think that the friendships that I make there are going to stay with me as lifelong connections for my career and in the future.
They'll be part of a delegation of 104 students meeting with federal government leaders to get a firsthand look at what running the country is really like.
I think this would be foundational for my future goals, as it will help me better understand how all these institutions work and especially how effective leadership will look like in practice.
And also just hearing from so many of our nation's top leaders, getting advice from them, seeing the things that they've done, and kind of inspiring me to do the same.
The program also comes with a $10,000 college scholarship.
I know I want to pursue something in civic engagement, policy, or just public service in general. So it would really help me learn more about this industry and talk to people who are actually doing the work.
When Wanting and Katerina return back to school, they'll both be looking forward to high school graduation this spring. Reporting in Scarborough, I'm Jamie Ajoulay, Maine's Total Coverage.
And we wish them good luck.
Yeah, congratulations. We'll be following along.
And so you may have noticed there were a couple of photos of Katerina looking like she's already been in Washington, D.C. And that's because actually last year she represented Maine in National History Day that happened in Washington, D.C. So while she was there, I think she had some other opportunities. So she's definitely one of many shining stars that we have here in Scarborough. So super excited to help celebrate her. In other news, I did want to give you all an update. I spent most of today really digging into a proposed bill that is going to be up in front of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee on Monday. And so that is LD 2224, and that is about proposed revisions for Maine school funding. I don't even need the slide deck, so we can ignore them. And so, as you know, you've heard me talk in previous meetings about the level of funding that we receive from the state that we can put towards our budget each year. We call that general purpose aid. It's based on this formula called essential programs and services. And, currently for the coming year, you heard me talk at the workshop just last week about, for FY27, we're on track to receive about $8.9 million out of a approximately $75 million budget. And so that really speaks to the really great local contribution that we have to make. And so last year at this time, the legislature directed MEPRI, which is the Maine Educational Policy Institute, to study the EPS formula for a year. And so they completed their study, and as a result of that, they made some recommendations to the legislature about some changes that they could make in the funding formula. And so today, we all convened in Augusta this morning to hear from Amy Johnson, the director of MEPRI, and Paula Gravel, who's in charge of all of the finance for DOE, about what those proposed changes would look like. And I will start by saying that most people in the room were very pleased when they took a look at the spreadsheets that they offered us. And unfortunately, I was not. Scarborough is, quite frankly, the biggest loser in the state in terms of funding for this new formula. And I don't say that in jest. Out of 260 districts, we are on track to lose the greatest amount of funding. And so the funding that is suggested that if this goes into effect would be a loss of $1.059 million of right now we're only receiving $8.9 million. So that means when this goes into effect, which it is not going to go into effect even if passed until FY28. So we know that the numbers that we have, that $8.9 million for the coming year, is a fixed amount of money, and we can plan accordingly from that. But if this bill gains traction as written, this is really going to be super impactful for Scarborough. The proposal actually aims to redistribute about $5 million of funds across the state. And that $5 million is being taken from some districts and redistributed to others. And so out of that $5 million, we're giving $1 million of that just in Scarborough, if this were to go into effect. And so the proposal really disproportionately affects Cumberland County. I was talking with some of our colleagues today, and there are 4 districts in Cumberland County that will collectively, the 4 of us will be losing 3 out of the $5 million. So Scarborough is the biggest loser at the amount that I just told you. Falmouth is close behind us with only $5,000 less of a cut. So they're also on track to lose $1 million, just over $1 million. And then Yarmouth and Greeley are on track to lose somewhere in the amount of $400,000 each. And so, as you can imagine, I feel really strongly that there are some very critical flaws in the methodology that they are using to calculate. And I will go into detail with you for a few minutes about what that is. So there are 4 areas that they really looked at, or recommendations that they made in terms of looking at the formula. And I also sent you all of my notes in your email. And so all of that is readily available for you. So the first concern is, or the first correction that's being made is what they're calling a regional adjustment. And so if you think about our current model of EPS, again, EPS is intended to set a minimum standard for the cost of education, right? And so EPS doesn't necessarily, it's not intended to provide you with all of the money that you need to run a school district. It really is a basic model of adequacy, right? And so it sets standards. It says, like a class size should be X. A principal should oversee Y number of students. You should have 1 guidance counselor for every so on and so forth. And so it kind of goes through and details things out. And so the study that was done made these 4 recommendations. And what they did was they posited out and did some modeling with this year's FY27 numbers, using their changes of the model to test out the impact and to see what the impact would be for school districts. I'm also going to say, I definitely recognize the need for EPS to be re-examined and for the model to change. Most of the modeling done for EPS happened around 2001, 2002, and hasn't been looked at since. The one time that EPS was re-examined was in fiscal year 2024. And at that time, some of you may recall that was around the same time that Maine set a minimum standard for teacher salaries, making that $40,000. And so the state felt really strongly that they had to go back to the EPS model to make sure that when they're allocating funds for teachers, that they were putting in $40,000 as a minimum. Other than that, the model really hasn't been touched since its inception. And so that first piece that they're looking to make is what they call a regional adjustment. And so what that does is that shifts away from what the current model is around average teacher's salary or that $40,000 minimum. And what they do instead is they start looking at these regional cost of living indexes, right? And so they're using a completely different measure. And so what it does is it indexes all the regions in the state with the cost of living at 1.0, and then it shifts it depending on where you live. Like if the cost of living is more in Southern Maine, then your cost of living basis might increase, right? And so concerns about that piece really are around the fiscal impact of the change, right? Because in looking at the regional adjustment, it's not just shifting around existing money. It's also the state would be having to put in an additional $37.4 million, right? And so if you think about how many school districts there are in the state, there are 260 school districts in the state. And looking at just this regional adjustment, about 131 districts are projected to see subsidies increase because of this first component. Unfortunately, 17 districts will experience funding decreases, right? And the others will stay, basically flat. And so from my perspective, the burden of modernizing, this formula is coming at a cost for some districts to ensure that other districts have more. The second factor, in my mind, is the biggest factor that I have the most concern about, and that's what they're calling the ability to contribute, your local share, right? And what your local share is based on. And you've heard me talk before about our EPS model and why we are lower receivers, and that really is based on valuation. And so as they looked at the ability to contribute, they wanted to look at how that was being calculated. And so the decision that was made from MEPRI in terms of their recommendation was to incorporate community income levels in that ability to contribute. And so what they're looking to do is to adjust the mill rate, right? So the mill rate basically says, here's the amount of money that your school district needs to raise, right, towards education. And so what their proposal is to adjust the mill rate either up or down for any school district based on the percentage of economically disadvantaged students and no other local measure. And my problem with that is that if that is the sole proxy for community income, that's a really flawed model for Scarborough. I was this afternoon when I came back, I've been working on this all day, trying to just piece some things together because there's a public hearing on this on Monday morning. And so I really want to make sure that I can contribute some testimony for that. And so I gave Karen Martin a call from SEDCO and said, can you give me the most updated number about the number of taxpayers in our community who do not have any children of school age, right? Because if they are only using the school age families as the measure here, to me, that is inherently flawed. And what I learned from Karen, I was thinking that it was about 60% of families that, or of taxpayers that don't have kids. And actually, Karen had just received the updates in the past couple of weeks. And so she said, give me like half an hour and I can, call you back. 76.3% of Scarborough's population has no students in school. So they are basing our ability to pay on less than 25% of our taxpayers. And in my mind, that is very flawed because it really ignores the financial reality that we hear every year during the budget period. We heard it a lot during the school referendum time, about residents who can't afford to have their taxes increased. And of that, 76% of households without children, 39% of Scarborough households are made up of folks 65 or older, right? And so we're looking at a really large demographic of people who don't have kids in school and maybe elderly on fixed incomes. I was talking with Amy Johnson because I know her very well. at the break today, and I said to her, because they used Scarborough as an example during the training, because, right, because we're an outlier, right? Like we're number one, for the wrong reason. And I said to Amy, I was explaining my problem with this, and I said, the other thing that really is not reflected in this is that we know that there are many families who are generational families in Scarborough, right? I grew up in Southern Maine. I remember Scarborough being a farm town, right? A more rural area. And, if we think about the generational families in our community, many of those families were really fortunate to buy big parcels of land for probably not a lot of money, or a little cottage by the beach, for a song at the time, right? And so good for them. They're sitting on a really valuable piece of property right now. But we hear year over year that they can barely afford to pay the taxes because their valuation has changed so much. And so I'm really disappointed that that those are not even measures that are considered here, right? Because their property values don't really reflect the actual income that they may have, right? Just because you have valuable property doesn't mean that you also have generational wealth and the ability to pay. The answer to that at this morning's presentation was, this is why we need to make sure that we have strong tax relief programs. And I don't disagree with that. I think we do need strong tax relief programs, but if those are operating on separate roads, there's no guarantee that tax relief will come, right? But we know that, or we expect that our funding will decrease. The other two pieces that they're looking at, the third piece is around resetting transportation technology and instructional support costs within the model. And that's all tied into the re-indexing. And so if you're losing money in number 1 and number 2, you're also going to be a loser in number 3, because they're directly tied in together. And so that's another area where there's going to be, a net loss. And then the fourth area is about the rising costs of special education. And we've talked about that here because that's the biggest driver in our budget year over year. And at this point, they haven't finalized a recommendation fix for this. And so on that basis alone, I could never support this bill, right? Because we would be saying that we're going to support it without knowing what those details are. What they're really looking to do is they are looking to contain the amount of spending happening in special education. And I'm not sure how that's possible, given, the kids that we're seeing in our community, which all of my other colleagues are also seeing in their communities as well. And so I put together my thoughts about, the things that are flawed about this current proposal. But then I also came up with some recommendations, right? And so one recommendation that I have, and I already have sent, my feedback to our own state representatives and state senators in Scarborough. So they received that just before this meeting. But my first recommendation for them to think about is to step back and notice that this is really just a redistribution of the burden, right? And so what they're doing is saying, we see somebody needs something here. You look like you're doing okay, so I'm going to take that from you so that you can be better served. And it overlooks the actual income levels of communities like Scarborough because it just paints us with a broad brush. And they look at our bottom line and say, oh, that looks like it's a, it's a community that's taking care of itself. And I do feel, and I said this to my colleagues that were sitting at the table, all of which were celebrating, I said, that I really felt like this was painting a really broad brush to a community that is actually a lot more diverse than people might recognize. And so my recommendations that I shared with our legislatures, and I hope to give testimony on Monday about, the first is to really broaden that definition of ability to pay, right? And to replace that economically disadvantaged student metric with a more comprehensive measure of median household income, right? We should be looking at every household in Scarborough, not 24% of households in Scarborough. And so the state has to have another measure like median household income or total taxable income that they could be looking at to give them information that more clearly represents the community. I also feel that they should implement a hold harmless provision. This $1 million that they're suggesting that we're going to lose is part of a pot of a total of $5 million that 43 districts are going to lose out on, right? We're going to lose 20% of the pot ourselves for the whole state. And in my mind, the state should have a hold harmless provision so that none of the districts who are currently losers would experience a loss until our EPS reaches that amount. Or if there has to be a loss, let's step down from that with a really small fixed percentage. Because if we're only getting $9 million and we lose $1 million, that's like 13% of state subsidy that we would be losing. And so this would be, the hold harmless provision would allow for more predictable budget planning and mitigate like a big cliff that we would be reaching. And, because it's only $5 million and 34 districts, it seems plausible that they could just keep us flat until the funding formula exceeds our FY27 amount. I also believe that they should take a look at the cost of living index to make sure that it accurately reflects the housing and labor costs specific to Greater Portland and Cumberland County. It's not a coincidence that the 4 highest losers are from Cumberland County, right? Why are 4 districts taking 60% of the hit? That seems inequitable. And then my final recommendation is that this bill should integrate property tax relief. I'm not a bill writer. I have never sat in legislature, but it seems to me that if they're recommending that the fix to changes in local subsidy is to ensure that we have property tax relief for the people who need it, then in my mind, those 2 pieces should be married together so that they are structurally intertwined in the new funding model. Because unless we do that, then the suggestion of it is insufficient. It doesn't address it. And it won't alleviate that increased tax burden on affected communities or specific affected taxpayers. So at this point, this bill is, like I said, there's a public hearing on Monday in front of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. That's happening at 10 a.m. I'm happy to provide you with the details about that. Like I said, I did forward you all of the notes that I compiled that were a result of the meeting that I was at this morning and then some digging that I've been doing since I've been back. this afternoon. So, you know, there are lots of ways that you can let people know how you feel about this, right? You could write a letter using some of the talking points that I've provided. You know, you could send those letters to our state representatives and senators here in Scarborough. You could also direct it specifically to the members of the Educational and Cultural Affairs Committee. What's really hard about this, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, is most of my colleagues in these 260 districts are celebrating this. And I'm not trying to, you know, to say that I think that they shouldn't get the money that they need, but I don't think that it has to come this way so that other people lose out on funds that they need. So I think that there are other ways that we could consider that. The information that we got today is this is going to the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee, and from there it would move forward. And it would not be appropriated in this budget. It would become part of the next biennial budget, which will also be under a new state leader. So that's a little interesting also. But in any regard, the good news is that in terms of our FY27, even though we weren't celebrating that we only got an $11,000 increase, I guess I'm going to celebrate that we got $11,000 more this year. But certainly as we look ahead to FY28, there's a lot for us to be paying attention to because I think that there's a lot at stake. And again, as I said to my colleagues at the table today, I said, I certainly understand that the state can't fund everything for everyone. And I think our local school project is a great example of that, right? We worked really diligently for 4 years to make sure that there was an understanding in this community that the state wasn't going to be taking care of us in terms of our facilities. And we were really successful in getting our community to support that. And hearing this news on the heels of that is really defeating. So I'm a little disappointed and kind of fired up.
Okay. Thank you. I suppose thank you is the right words. Thank you for your hard work.
And if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
Are there any questions? Let's start with questions.
Yeah, so Kelly Murphy is our representative and she's at the head of the education committee. Any chance she could look out for our interests and sort of?
Yeah, I reached out to her today, right? So, so again, we've got Kelly Murphy, who is directly on that committee. But, like Sophie Warren was just at our community forum the other evening. And so I reached out to Sophie. I also reached out to Stacy Brenner and Ann Carney, who also represent Scarborough, because I think that, I wanted to make sure that my message got out early enough because, I'd be the first to say, I can be critical, but I also want to help be a problem solver. And so I wanted to offer some alternate suggestions or other ways that they might look at things so that it felt more equitable and, that we would have an easier time coming down from that, if that is in fact a change that gets made.
And then I had a question about, just to understand a little bit better. So the mill rate.
Yep.
So that would be imposed on all, the change in the mill rate would affect all Scarborough property taxpayers or just the 26%?
All of them.
All.
Right. So what they would be doing is they would be looking at the mill rate for every community. And then based on their assessment of your ability to pay, either your mill rate goes down or your mill rate goes up.
Yeah, that's a separate.
Right.
Yes.
This is the mill rate that the state sets, right? So when you look at your tax bill and like how much goes to education, how much goes to the county, et cetera, right? That's how that piece gets calculated.
No.
Correct. Right.
This
It's
is,
kind of baked into that formula, right? How would you just best describe it, Kate? Yeah, sorry.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. So yeah, it's confusing because they use the term mill rate for two different purposes. The mill rate, when we're talking about the way that they calculate state subsidy, is simply a formula that they apply to the total cost of education that they've calculated for your town. And they assess a mill rate and say, you have to provide X number of dollars to pay for your K-12 schools, and we're going to give you the rest. And that's what your general purpose aid is the rest of it. So when we talk about setting a mill rate in our town and assessing taxes, that's a whole different process. They're kind of using the same term, and they're adjacent to each other, but what they do at the state level merely gives us a number. Here's your revenue for schools. And then we do our work to build that into the budget and determine the mill rate locally for actually assessing taxes in Scarborough, if that makes sense.
and I think just to add on to what I think I heard you asking is if you think of this as a revenue source from the state, anything that, so if we were spending 10 million and we were getting 1 million, we would still need to raise $9 million. And so that money that $9 million doesn't come from the 23% that has a school age child. It comes from 100% of Scarborough residents.
Right.
They all have to pay that.
Got it. I just was, you mentioned, you just illustrate that. It was just that percentage of 26% is just illustrate the number of people who actually have school-aged children, and the vast majority are paying taxes for education, but they're not directly benefiting from it.
Correct.
Right. And what the superintendent was pointing out is that the method that the Department of Education is considering using to identify the level of ability to pay in a town is just a form that school-aged children fill out. Well, their parents fill it out, right? So it's an economic status form. Only if your child attends school would you even submit that information to the state. So if they're only collecting that information about ability to pay from this small segment of our population, then how do they know whether the other 75% can afford to pay their taxes or not?
So that's answering,
Right.
okay, so they are collecting information on
School-aged children's families.
they're submitting form, right, and they're submitting those forms when they enroll their child?
Exactly. Every year when they do their school enrollment paperwork.
That
Yeah.
all parents get.
That's right, I had
Right,
to
so
fill
it's
that
one of
out.
those online forms that you have to do. So we collect from everyone. And in fact, since we started doing that about 3 years ago, our rates for economically disadvantaged really increased a lot, right? Because before it was like, hey, send me that form if you want to, right? And so what we did was we baked that form into all the paperwork that you have to fill out. And so we get that information more than not.
Right. And it has been really successful collecting that information within our school community. And it's been really helpful to us in a lot of different ways. But the point being that there's still a whole segment of our population about which you know absolutely nothing through that method, right?
Many of which are seniors.
Exactly. Exactly the people that you might assume
Right.
can
Cannot afford.
actually have a problem paying their taxes.
Which
right?
is the 75% of our population. And going one step further, those forms are as good as the people that willingly fill it out.
Right.
So in other words, if we're basing this calculation off of 25% of our population that we're asking to fill out the forms, and it's great that we're seeing an increase and that people are doing it, but you're also asking
Then the
the
number who
community
actually
to
do
be-
it.
to really put forth information that could be embarrassing, that could be very deeply personal, that could be something that they're not interested in sharing with the school community, what right, wrong, or indifferent, right? And so you're basing this, not only are we not accounting for 75% of the population, we're basing this number on self-reported numbers versus an accurate statistical data that we can receive.
Right. And
So
that's where the
I would
question.
hazard a guess, I say all of this to say I would hazard a guess that those numbers, even though they've increased, are not actually where we're at in Scarborough.
They're also not fluid. You collect that information at one point in a person's life when they're filling out some paperwork, and then you leave it alone for a year. And there are other mechanisms that we've used in the past through the school lunch program that can actually capture changes in people's status during the course of the year. But once again, those are school kids, not families without them. So a lot of missing information there that could be really valuable to the state in terms of determining an equitable ability to pay among school communities.
And then one last question, Dan. The other 3 losing school districts, how strong an set of allies are they to help you sort of advocate?
We've been talking.
Okay.
They all came
My
home in the same car
communication with
together.
them and said, feedback appreciated. And they were like, spot on. But again, right, it puts us in a really uncomfortable position, right? Because there shouldn't be winners and losers.
Exactly. We don't want to be making the argument that there's a mistake in trying to improve the funding formula.
Right. I think the
and
intent is
and we're upset
right.
because we're the loser, right? That's not okay. That's not what we're trying to say. We just, it would be nice if they could improve the formula and make it more accurate and more relatable to actual education as it stands today and the cost of that education without creating a situation where some communities are going to have a big
Yeah.
chunk of their expected funding disappear.
No, in my mind, right, like the formula is just inherently flawed in terms of determining the ability to pay
Mhm.
because we're not looking at 76% of our community. So how can you say that, right, with confidence based on the 24% of people we're looking at? You have
And the
ability
percentage
to
of
pay.
those who filled out the form, to Shannon's
Filled
point.
out the forms accurately. Right, you're self-reporting and you're asking deeply personal questions. Are there any other questions or any other thoughts right now? I have a lot of thoughts. And I too had hoped that with a review of the funding formula, that it would be an opportunity for all of us to do a little bit better across the entire state. You we get 13% of our budget paid for. We are very proud of us as a state of the 55% that we fund, and that does not, I think there's a lot of confusion among people that what that means. And so I think the start is being really transparent about what all of these numbers mean. And this is why I pushed so hard last week during our workshop. When we say things like this is a mandate and it will be 100% funded, I expect that means every single aspect will be funded. And what we find is, well, yes, we mean it's going to be funded, but it's not really going to be funded. And there's going to be pieces here and there that aren't funded that you're responsible for. Every time we do that, we ask our community members to support something else every single time. And so you do that enough and we, people, it creates this sense of whatever the opposite of goodwill is, that's what it creates with the school system and the elderly population, the senior citizens that we have here. And we have seen it play out for the last 3 years with our school project. And I don't think anybody inherently does not want to support the schools and doesn't want to support kids. What they want to do is to be able to stay in their homes. And they want to be able to buy groceries and they want to be able to pay for medications that they need. What they don't want to do is be kicked out of their house or have to move later in life. They might have owned this house for their entire life. I know so many senior citizens here that have lived here for 40 plus years in the same house. And that's what they want to do. And so this is incredibly disappointing on so many levels. We are the oldest state in the union by age. It is a fact of life. And the fact that we are looking at a formula that does not take into account groups of people that don't have kids is abysmal at best and embarrassing at worst. And this is this is beyond, I care very deeply about home ownership. I think that it is the cornerstone of the American dream. I think that people, it creates a savings pot of wealth for people when they retire in their lives. And so but what I see happen here in Scarborough is that we have this misnomer that because people own property, that they are all wealthy. And that is not true in Scarborough. It is not true. You can own a home. You can own a home that is worth a lot of money. You could be sitting on a plot of land that is worth a lot of money. It does not translate to money in your account at the end of the day. It does not. And so I also intend to, I would like to attend on Monday as well. I would like us as a board to consider, I've thought about it a couple of ways. I think we could go the way of what the council just recently did with the, I'm drawing a blank. Yes, 1829, thank you, where the council gave Tom and Larry, kind of gave them the authority to go speak on behalf of the council. I can clear my Monday and do that with Diane. And so if you're interested in giving Diane and I authority to go, I can work, it's quick notice. I could work on something and get it to you. So public comment so that you could see it ahead of time. But if there is 100% support from the board here, that's what I would like to do. Kelly Murphy, to your point, is the representative who heads the education committee. And yes, she is a representative of Scarborough. I have not spoken to her about this. I don't know if you have as our legislative. Okay. So this was new information to me when Diane and I did speak a little bit earlier today in preparation for the meeting. So that's how I would like to handle it. I'm open to conversation or discussion, but I mean, and anybody's willing to join us. Of course, it's Monday at 10 a.m. in Augusta. But at a bare minimum, I would like this board to support Diane and I going and speaking on our behalf. The point is I told Diane earlier today, and I will stop talking after this. I told her earlier today, you know, we take this job and we take this oath and we say that our responsibility is to the students of Scarborough. And I believe that that's true. Our responsibility is to the students and our responsibility is also to their families, but we also represent everyone else who lives in Scarborough. And this does a disservice to everybody in Scarborough.
I fully support, giving you guys authority to represent us. I'll see if I can join you guys on Monday. I'm gonna look at my calendar. I just think this is really important, so. And I don't know if we also want to draft a letter. Yeah.
And we can also submit testimony online too, so it might be worth
Absolutely.
each of us doing that, but I also would support, I would be delighted for you guys to go up there. I wish I could join you. Unfortunately, I can't, but I'm thinking about writing my own, but it's like, the state has, in this last year, made it almost impossible for us to run smoothly. I mean, we have this growth mandate, and now we have to spend a lot of money on our schools. And then we have to take on not only 4-year-olds, but 3-year-olds because the state couldn't do it. And now they want to take money out of our education budget. I just, at some point, is anybody looking out for our elders at all in any committee? It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. And I would just add that, to be really upfront, we are going to be of the minority opinion on Monday, and I am very well aware of that.
I'm totally comfortable to be in the minority opinion on this. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, you have my support. Keep going up there.
You have my full support.
Good. Thank you, John. Mitchell, you good? All right, so what I'll do is, I need to finish reading through the results of the study, which I can forward if you haven't seen it. And then I'll work on a letter this weekend that I'll That would just be what I would say on our behalf. But to Jillian's point, you are absolutely welcome to submit one on your own as well. That's absolutely doable too.
I did also mention it to Tom Hall earlier today because again, I feel like this isn't necessarily just a school thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is going to impact the entire town. And so I shared my notes with Tom and Karen Martin as well.
Yeah.
In the event that they might want to provide something, you know, Tom gave me some great feedback about what I wrote in terms of the testimony that I intend to give. And he said, do you think that that's enough? And I said, no, there's not going to be enough voices.
No.
We need as many voices as possible. And if that's in letter format, that's okay too.
Yeah, I will, I did mean to say that. I said I would stop talking, but I maybe fibbed. I would like to share this with town council and maybe the counselors can also write letters. This does impact them as well, of course. But also I was thinking too, your friends and your family in the community might be interested in also writing a letter and supporting this. So I would encourage you to share this with those that as you're having conversations this weekend and out and about, I would encourage you to share this with them as well. This is going to be a big impact. And when you look at the dates, it's going to, of course, line up pretty closely to when we start building the school.
Do we want something to go out with like one of the school newsletters or something through like the not time?
I'm not sure that I think that like, again, like as you heard me explain this, right? Like it's pretty complex, right? And so it's not like I could write 2 paragraphs in a newsletter and people would, right? Capture it.
Yeah.
I don't know what, thoughts folks have about that. I mean, perhaps that's not for Monday, but as we watch the bill move, then perhaps, there might be an opportunity for us. This might be a great community forum idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or an opportunity to have a focused conversation with constituents.
Yeah.
I just want to make everyone aware that the legislative session is drawing to a close. So things are happening really quickly. There's a lot going on all at once. And what that means is after it comes out of the education committee, because there's not a fiscal note, it doesn't have to go to appropriations, which means it'll very quickly land on I don't know, it was Murphy, it originated in the House, so it'll land on the House's desk for 2 votes, and then it'll go to the Senate's for votes, and there's an opportunity to make amendments if they need to, but they won't probably with this because there's no funding involved, and it's too complicated to really like have a floor amendment to it. So what that means is after Monday, if they vote it out of committee, if they don't vote out of committee, it dies, but if they vote out of committee, it's probably going to hit a calendar within the next week because the statutory adjournment date is the 15th and they're trying to get everything done because they have to turn their attention fully to the supplemental budget. The public hearings on that are almost over. They're going to conclude next week. And then that's all anyone's going to talk about because they're going to be under a lot of pressure to get that done before statutory adjournment on the 15th of April. And I know that seems like a long way away, but the budget is going to be is sizing up to be a very feisty interaction between the parties. So I think just like this isn't going to be like, oh, we'll come back in a couple, it'll be done by the time we have our next meeting.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, it'll be done by that point.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts? All right. Thank you, Diane. You're welcome. All right. Agenda item 7.0 is the chair's report. 7.1 is me. And I failed to mention this at the beginning, but if you haven't seen, Cheryl and the board and the town are using a new agenda format. And so you can thank Cheryl. She's been working really hard on getting this up and running, but you can notice it looks a little bit different. So I just have a couple of items. The first is that, if you just keep going and then, that's okay. The Board of Education election is coming soon, which is June 9th. There are 2 seats available. Papers are available to pick up now to collect your signatures. They are due back on April 1st. I did hear yesterday that there has been one person that has pulled papers already, which is great news as of yesterday. But there is 2 seats open. So for anybody who's interested in running for that. The other 2 things I have, one that I was watching and or am watching to see, it's to Fraila's point, this is a short session in the legislature. One of the things that was included, I mentioned to you in the supplemental budget, was the cell phone ban, the full ban for cell phones in schools. And it looks like that did pass to appropriations. So that will be the next thing that just for us to keep in mind. It's a very tight window. If the budget, the supplemental budget gets approved with that ban in it, the timeline to turn around to ban cell phones is going to be short. It's gonna be like a short window, a couple months to get it, whatever that plan is going to look like to get it implemented. So just keeping an eye on that. And then yesterday at the council meeting, the council did have their second reading and public hearing on the updated or the impact fees schedule. Specifically as it relates to the school project, and what they did unanimously, I think it was, no, it was not unanimous, it's 6-1. What they voted to approve was the new impact fee schedule that will collect $52 million over 30 years, the next 30 years, which will be the life of the loan, the bonding that'll happen for the school project. So that that is the new fee-based schedule. It is based on the type of housing and how many units are in the house. So they are still suggesting that every 3 years that be looked at and updated as they can see how land is being used. But that is the estimate, that it would be a $52 million, it would result in $52 million back to the town, which is
As an offset.
offset, yeah, which would be nice.
Yep.
So that was approved. Nothing else really to report from that meeting. And that is what I have today. Any questions for me or?
Just to understand, so with the impact fee, that offsets 52 million from what the town would bond for the school project, bringing the price tag down in terms of what is bonded in.
It would pay down the debt.
It would pay down,
right,
it would
yes.
pay down part of the 140. Yeah,
Well, it's the school, yeah.
Yes, dedicated to that.
Right, because it's the idea, just to take one step backward, the idea is that as people build homes in Scarborough, they impact our infrastructure, specifically in this case, our schools. And so what they're paying, the developers and anybody who builds a house, what they're paying for is that impact on our school structure.
That's 52 million additional or total?
Total over
30 years. 30 years.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, good questions. All right, if there's no questions for me, we'll move on to committee reports. 8.0 is the committee reports. 8.1 is the community outreach committee. So I'll turn this over to Charlotte.
Thank you. This past Monday, we hosted our Winter Community Forum in the Westbrook Learning Commons. We were grateful to have a small group of community members show up and had meaningful conversation, and it really felt like we were building some good relationships with those who showed up. We were also really excited to welcome one of our Scarborough legislators, Representative Sophie Warren, who attended. Additionally, we will be meeting the Community Outreach Committee this Monday, March 9th at 5:30 to further discuss and organize around the Senior Appreciation Dinner. And then we are excited to be able to recognize another Scarborough staff member at our 319 board meeting, rescheduled from some illness. And we're still really in need of more nominations for Staff Spotlight Awards. So I did link the form right here. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Moving on to our curriculum committee.
Yes, sorry, I don't know why I was confused by that. All right, so we actually did postpone our last meeting, which was going to be on the 2nd, just before the forum. We decided that we didn't really have enough time, so we decided to move that to next Thursday at 5:30. And so there's not really an update from the last meeting, but Katie has worked on a form to solicit interest in the CNA meeting, and so we're going to go over that, and she plans to launch that ASAP. And then we will hear some updates from the math curriculum meeting that was had, and the work that they've done over the last several months. So we're really looking forward to that.
Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Okay. Mitchell, do you want to do the finance report?
So our last meeting recently got rescheduled to be March 10th, just due to a couple of scheduling conflicts. As you can see, budget season is in full swing according to the calendar. We'll have some more exciting news coming up here after the 11th and 12th when we have our joint town and board workshops. And then this month's meeting and kind of review should fall on the 17th. And then our first reading for the fiscal year 27 budget will be at our next board meeting, or the March 19th board meeting.
Right, thanks so much. Any questions for Mitchell? All right, negotiations.
We've been regularly meeting with our SCA partners that are hard at work on the educational support professionals contract.
Thank you so much. You want to take policy too? Keep going. Yeah.
I'll keep going to policy. So we had our meeting this evening. We usually meet on the first Thursday of the month along with this board meeting. And we touched on a few things that we are pending the calendar, a couple of the D policies having to do with finances, purchase and contracting, decision of surplus property. We spent the bulk of the meeting on KEB, which is complaints against school personnel, and updating that policy. I think that draft is going to come forward shortly in front of the board. Our next meeting is first Thursday in April. I don't know what day it is. On April 2nd. It's a hybrid meeting at the school board conference room at 5 o'clock. We're going through policies in reverse chronological order. So once we finish up KEB and make sure all those other policies are taken care of, we'll move on to KE, which is public concerns and complaints. And I think upcoming shortly will be a social media policy, which may be of interest.
Oh, I have a question for you. Did you hear from Jen Day when the Drummond Woodson might have that policy, the sample policy?
No, I don't think they had it yet, but I'll double check. I think I would expect it to happen after April 15th.
Okay.
It's all hands on deck there.
Oh,
They're no.
busy.
I just did have a question for Freyla. So if this school phone ban goes into effect or, continues through the legislative process, are we gonna have to return to our school?
Yes, you
Our
would.
cell phone policy?
So what would happen is statutes go into effect 90 days after adjournment. So presuming they adjourn on time on April 15th, which is normally what they do, they can change it occasionally, but it's very unusual for them to do that in a second session. Which is why there's a statutory date. So things go into effect on July 15th. So you would have you would know by April 15th of adjournment when, if the budget passed, when the budget passed, and what the budget has in it. And then you'd have 90 days from that date before the statutes become effective. And so it would presumably, unless there's a different date put into that budget, which that budget is enormous. There's a website dedicated to it with multiple parts. And it's a huge document. So when they go through it, it's really painstaking. So they did 2 weeks of public hearings on it with testimony. And then they have 2 weeks of public work sessions on it, which they're in the middle of right now. So they go through each piece individually. And then it'll move into the full House and then the Senate to go through it. And they can be floor amendments, so things can change at that point in time.
All right, the last one is the post-referendum building committee. Do you want me to do that or you want me to do that one? I asked only because John, had to miss the last meeting. We met, we're only meeting once a week, once a month. We're only meeting once a week. We're meeting once a month. So our February meeting, was a lot about programming and kind of getting updated on the process and what's going on. The Harriman and Diane and Ray, have been really busy meeting at the schools. I think you had over 70 meetings. Is that right?
Yes.
At the schools, talking about the design and the structure of the schools. It's been pretty intense and making sure, intensive as a schedule and this is done to make sure that the different schools have a say in what's going on and what's, the design and what things are going to look like at their new buildings. So I think you're about done now, right?
Yes.
I think those are about done. So one of the things that they did while they were there is at each school was they came up with a design statement to really kind of ground the school in their new either new building or the updates they're going to get. So for example, Blue Point's design statement was, let me back up. What they did was they broke out into little groups and they each worked on it. And then they came up with one, final design statement. So an example for Blue Point was, the place where children are welcomed in a loving and engaging learning environment. That was one of the groups, their design statement that they came up with. So, they worked through this and what they ended up coming up with was for all of the school was rooted in nature where land meets the sea. Blue Point nurtures curious minds through care, compassion, and community. So that's their design statement as they're moving forward with their building and their design. They also looked at design patterns and looked at different things that might be important for their specific school. Some of the big things that came out of that was really looking at outdoor space and making sure that the areas for play were really well developed. Making use of what they call ubiquitous learning spaces. And that's like, it reminds me of, this is going to sound bizarre, but when people build a house and they have a stairwell and they make use of every square inch. And so they put a storage unit under the stairs, that's what it reminds me of. So they're finding these little spaces in the building where they can make something of that space. So the great example she gave was there's in one school build that they did, they had a little tiny wall, a literal wall that you would walk by, but it happened to be where near a door where where the classes would go out for outdoor time. And so when they made that a little sitting area. So when there's an issue out on the playground, instead of needing to take the student, go all the way back to the classroom, have a discussion, come all the way back, now they can bring them in and go to the seating area, have a discussion about their behavior, sit them in timeout or whatever that is they're going to do, and then bring them right back out. So they don't have to travel all the way across the school. And so it's making use of the spaces you've got it. And then the third was developing what they call social development spaces. So little areas where the whole school could get together. So a lot of work like that's been done across all of the schools. We are right on target with the timeline, right in the middle of the design and development phase. The committee has been working really hard at really finding their voice and understanding what their roles and their responsibilities are. And how that fits into the larger picture here. So all of that is right where we should be. So I don't think there was anything else. If you're interested in really looking at the budget is in there. We did have a very lengthy conversation about the understanding the role of an owner's rep and what that means, just very similar to like what we had at a couple of meetings ago. So that went really well. Other than that's about where we're at. We're next meeting, I think it's actually next week, next Tuesday. Yeah. So if you're interested in joining us, you are more than welcome to. We'd love to have you. This meeting is going to be at Blue Point this time, right?
Yes.
Is it Blue Point? Because we're doing a tour.
The tour at
Yeah.
5:30.
So if you are interested in seeing the school, if you haven't seen it in a while or just want a refresher, the tour will start at 5:30 and then the meeting will start immediately afterward.
I had a question for you, just because it came up when I was interviewing Mr. LaBerge and Mr. Mosher. One of the things that we're hoping is that in this, the PBRC is going to be looking at the sizing of the music. They gave equal space for a band room, a classroom, and a vocal arts classroom. And they emphasized to me that they need to be of different sizes. One only needs 25 students, another has to house 100 students, has to, have capacity for like 80 to 100 students with instruments. And so 3 rooms of equal size don't make sense. I don't know if that's something that's being addressed or talked about at the middle school.
So that's the kind of information that we're collecting and gathering from all the groups we're meeting with. And as you can imagine, so you've talked to 2 music educators and, at the middle school, we probably met with easily 10 different groups. And so you can imagine that every group we meet with has ideas about things that they would like to see change. And the challenge for Harriman is to take all that feedback in, right? Talk to all of the different related parties and then figure out what is doable given the constraints of the project. So those are the next steps. Harriman, now that we have finished all those meetings, what they're starting to do is they're compiling all of that. And then we're going to start, like I had a meeting with them a couple of days ago where they've started that work for 8 Corners, right? And so they were like, okay, here's all the data that we got. And now here are some changes in the floor plan that we can suggest. We're not changing walls. We're not changing the size of the building, right? But within the building, what are the puzzle pieces that can move around and how can those be shifted, right? And so to the greatest extent possible, we're looking to be able to meet those needs, but also being really realistic with everyone that not every wish list item is going to be able to be addressed in general terms. Yeah.
Perfect. Are there any other questions? All right, agenda item 9.0 are liaison reports. Does anyone have a report? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 10.0 is student representative report. So we'll turn this over to Abby and Sarah.
Okay, at the high school last weekend was the One Act play. It is called Actor Games, and it was a parody of Hunger Games. And up next, they're going to be competing at the state competition. And at the high school next Monday is 8th grade step-up night for the 8th graders transition from middle school to high school. They will get tours of the high school and a presentation with information about academic and athletic programs. And also at the middle school, there will be having a penny war fundraiser to be raising coins, cash, and checks to raise money for future field trips.
So in February, the Wentworth robotics team called Wentworth Brick Invaders competed in the State of Maine finals for First Lego League, where they tied for 3rd place in the robot game and won 1st place for the Robot Design Award for their engineering and coding of the robot. The team is made up of 4th graders Claire Ladd and Leo Johnson, 5th graders Enzo Ritchie, Peter Quinn, and Shruthi S., and 6th graders Spencer Coate and Evie Lagaros. They competed against teams made up of middle and high school students. Wentworth Brick Invaders are coached by Brandon Johnson, one of the STEM teachers at Wentworth, and assisted by Adam Shepard, a 5th grade teacher.
Nice. Very good. Thank you. Thank you both for that update. Are there any questions?
No, I just want to echo that the One Act play, which was excellent. I attended it and it was really enjoyed it. It was, and I hope that they do very well in the competition. So.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 11.0 is general public comment. Is there anyone, I laugh because everybody left. Is there anybody wishing to make general public comment this evening? Is there anyone online? Great. Well, hearing none, we will close general public comment for this evening. Agenda item 12.0 is continuing business. 12.1 is a continuation of the pre-K discussion. This is a continuation of what we started last week at our workshop. Diane, well, did you have anything you wanted to, do you want to maybe
Well,
give an overview of what we discussed?
You know, again, I would just kind of encapsulate what we talked about last week. Last week, I mentioned to you that it seems as though we have an opportunity in front of us this year to be able to expand pre-K at no new local cost. I think on the heels of what I said to you earlier this evening, this is probably a really good time for us to think about this. You know, as we discussed last week, I kind of put forth 3 scenarios for your consideration. The first is the do nothing scenario. Let's just maintain the 1 pre-K classroom we have. I explained to you that if we do that, that increases our GPA this year by about $11,600. And so that means that we would have to completely wipe out our pre-K fund that we had set aside to be able to pay for that classroom. The second scenario that I ran by you last week was to add 32 students, and we could make that available by having a dedicated classroom at either Blue Point or Pleasant Hill that could house 2 half-day programs. So 16 students in the morning, 16 students in the afternoon. And that new funding for those students based on the 2-year average would generate an additional $355,000 for us, which would put us in the black for those programs, and there would be no local money that would be needed. What we would receive from the state would cover that. And then the robust scenario that I gave you was to increase pre-K by 64 students, so that we would have a total of 80 slots. Again, half-day programming on site. And the funding for that would generate just under $700,000 in GPA. And then the other piece that I would just reiterate is we believe that these spaces are available because of current class sizes at the K2 level. As you know, you passed a class size policy earlier this year that set the minimum class size for 16. And so in looking at our existing K2 schools, there looks like there's the ability for us to make up to 2 classrooms available. So really anxious to hear from you. I have a survey for families that I am literally just ready to press play on tomorrow. I actually have linked it into the newsletter in hopes that we can send it out. But that is the timeline at which we need to start moving, because parents who are thinking about pre-K for kids are making those decisions now. And so we need to get an idea of what potential interest might be.
All right.
And my friend Kate is here if you have some other math questions that I didn't answer well last week.
So as a reminder, if we go with the robust scenario with the almost 700,000 in new funding from the state, because it would put us in the black and give us, what dare I say, some extra
Yes.
funds. We could use that to offset, yes or no, this is a yes or no question. We could, I'm thinking, we can use that to offset the cost of the CDS services. So a director to come to help manage that program, to manage that program.
Right.
We could use that additional money to pay for something like that?
So one of the things that Kate and I have talked about in our planning, and we talked about this last week, right? That we are not signing on to take our CDS students for the FY 27 school year, right? Because we don't have it mapped out. We don't have enough partners, right?
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera. But we do see the need for us to hire someone in a consultant type capacity who could be a conduit for us to help us map out how we might be able to service these students, meet the FAPE requirement from that, you know, menu of possibilities, whether that be some some programs that we might have in-house, Shooting Stars. I think we're gonna have to look at some other partners as well, and grow that, given the number of students that we would expect to have to meet the needs for.
But that's a yes, we could use that
Yes,
extra.
and that would still, and again, either scenario 2 or scenario 3 would cover the cost of that.
Mhm.
In scenario 3, we could cover the cost of a consultant to help us develop that, plus still have other monies towards other areas of our budget.
Right, and what I would say about general purpose aid is that even though they are calculating that additional amount based on the number of pre-K kids we have, there's no requirement for us to spend it specifically on that programming. It just goes into the number that we receive for our K-12 education programs in general, which means exactly that, I'm looking at the numbers here and we're talking about receiving almost $700,000. And depending on the scenarios in terms of the shifting of existing staff and space, we might only spend 200,000 of that to make this happen, which means that the rest of it is available.
Is there any possibility to put any of that money into our existing pre-K reserve fund for the future?
We would have to have it as surplus at the end of the year, and then we could transfer it.
Trying to think like Freyla right now.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking?
Right, right. And of course, we will have some surplus at the end of the year. We always do, right? And so that would be a great way to target that in the same way that we did it this past year.
And a question, the reduction that is, being proposed at the legislature, would that affect the amount in the future that we get for pre-K?
Well, again, the whole model would be changing, right? And so I can't know today what lines from the 279 would be smaller, but I can tell you the bottom number could be smaller, right? Unless they go for some of my really great ideas,
Yeah.
which I'm going to push.
And I think one of the things that we have to bear in mind is that the growth and change in the GPA in the coming year by making this move then starts to just be the norm going
It levels
forward,
off.
right? So you're adding a bunch of kiddos, which gives you this little blip. And then if those are the same kids that you have the year after, by the third year, that's your status quo.
Right, but we would increase, I can't tell you by how much, because again, it's a changing formula. But we would increase just based on that 2-year average that I talked to you about, right? That's why these are increasing so much, because of the 2-year average. And so let's just say, for the purpose of discussion, we moved ahead and we had 80 students this year, right? And then next year we said, let's continue with 80. Our 2-year average would be 80 instead of our 2-year average being
64,
Do
right?
you want me to go to my mathing again?
64.
being, right, being 64.
Don't worry, I'm on it.
No, I don't think it's 64, 48.
So the faster we move.
Right, so
right.
next year we'd get reimbursement for 48, or this year, if we do this. And the following year, we'd get reimbursement for 80 instead of 48.
So you get a 2-year
So
increase.
over 2 years, we'd see things increase. And then it would level off.
Then that's your norm going forward.
But if this funding formula changes where they're taking money away from us, let's say we are on the losing end of that, it could impact our bottom line in terms of
Our bottom GPA.
our bottom GPA line, even though this, okay, so we could get
It
our,
doesn't mean that we wouldn't get allocation for pre-K, right? It just means that that mill rate, that their ability to pay, right, would get tweaked.
I think as a basic math premise, it couldn't hurt us to add more kids because that's the beginning of the formula where you're increasing the overall cost. So either way, regardless of how they tweak the ability to pay piece, you're saying that we are eligible for a higher cost.
and the sooner we add a pre-K, the sooner we can start, if we follow the robust model, that 2-year lag time, we start kind of catching up faster.
Right.
I don't know that, maybe I'm wrong. You missed my glorious mathing at the last workshop. It was something to
Was it
behold.
beautiful?
Yeah, it was beautiful. That's
I
a,
think she
that's a
even had
word choice.
calculator out at
Yes.
one point.
I have it out again right now I'm ready to get going. But it's not gonna level out, is it? Because you inherently expect when we're going to start bringing on the CDS services, those kids would increase, right? Because we would be bringing new children in for CDS services. And then we have to match them 1-to-1 for purposes of FAPE. So that formula, if I'm with averaging, again, mathing is not my strong suit, but it's going to continue to go up, right? Because we expect the number of students that we're serving to go up. So that 2-year average would grow constantly.
It
Yes?
depends on how many we have in-house, right? It depends on how many we have in-house. Because if we have 80 slots in-house, that means we couldn't have more than 40 of those students be identified as special education, because your classroom can't be more than 50%
Correct.
special education, right?
Correct.
So this, what we're proposing to do on site would give us a total of 48 seats, right? Between Shooting Stars and here.
Yes.
Right? Any other seats that we want are going to be, that's going to be different, right? Because we might not have the entire pre-K classroom. We might only be paying for the FAPE requirement piece.
Yeah, I think everything is getting jumbled. So like this funding opportunity is limited in time. So like we have a finite amount of time to access these funds that will not longer be available down the road. We have to build a space, whether it's here or we have to acquire space.
Yes.
For our 3 to 4 year olds, which is actually, and I'm going to say it's a backdoor way to require that the districts create pre-K programming for everybody. Like there's zero, it was not billed this way, but it is 100% going to require that pre-K spots be created for a lot of students. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter where they are.
You can buy
still-
pre-K spots
no.
somewhere else, or you can create pre-K spots where you're at.
Right.
You know, we're one of the rare districts that doesn't have shrinking enrollment. So the vast majority of other schools have a surplus of space. We are very unusual in that we don't have a surplus of space. In fact, it's a problem because they're looking at good ways to make those spaces productive. And pre-K is an obvious choice for everybody who has space. But so accessing this funding is a short-term ability to do that. We have been wanting pre-K, our community has been wanting pre-K, but we've never been able to have the space and the funding to do it. This is an ability to access extra funding that's not going to be available to create seats that we have to have in 2 years or 3. Like whenever the time frame hits, there's a state law mandating that we have these seats. So we have to create the seats no matter what. So the longer we delay, the harder it's going to be in 3 years, which is not shaping up to be a great economic year for us folks. We're going to have to figure out a way to make that happen. So the earlier we get started on the infrastructure, particularly if we can leverage as much money as we can get from the state to do that, the most advantageous place we've put the citizens of Scarborough who are going to have to pay for them later. The reason the funding level is off is because once you hit the population that you're gonna have, and we're gonna have a mixed model, because it's unlikely we're gonna create enough space for everybody we have to serve. So we'll serve as many people here as possible because it's cost effective. And then we'll find other partnerships or other ways to service the rest of the students that we are mandated to serve. But the sooner we can do that, the better. But once we get to our population level, we're not going to keep seeing an increase in 3 and 4-year-olds who we have to serve. Likely, we're going to hit a status quo where we get to some. It's going to vary. It's going to variability, but it's not going to be. We're not going to be creating another classroom and another classroom and another classroom every year. That levels off, and so that's why the funding will level off. But we can leverage that extra funding by increasing the seats faster right now, which is the best way we can do as a school board to fund this. So this is a win-win proposition in a lot of ways. We're able to create pre-K, which is unequivocally very good early intervention, and not for students who are at risk, which is early intervention for all students, give them access to educational opportunities. It has been shown to have one of the best beneficial things you can do for kids is get them into pre-K. Like, there are many studies on how successful kids are with having access to education a little bit earlier. Great, we're going to help students. We'll help taxpayers because we're going to leverage as much money from the state as we can get. The state doesn't want to give us money, apparently. They're looking actively trying to take it away. So if they're going to give us some money, like, we should take as much as we can get. Because at the end of the day, in 3 years, we're going to have every slot created anyway. So the earlier we get started and the more money we can leverage from an outside source, it's the best model to get us there. And I think, moreover, we can go out and sell it to the folks as a win-win. You have asked for pre-K. We have found a way to get there. We have to get there. And so like, let's seize every opportunity to get there as quickly as possible to meet the need and build the seats. I think that's a good way to sort of embrace it, which is like, we can fight and bemoan the fact that the state has both shoved 3 and 4-year-olds onto the school districts, which I've never liked, and that they have backdoored required us to create pre-K, which, as much as we want, we have never been able to figure out how to do it on a scalable size. I love the fact that we have a start at the 16 seats, but we all know that's inadequate to meet the demand. And so I think we just have to go out and say, like, we have to do this. We found the most cost-effective way to do it, and then fully embrace it and own the fact that this board may actually create pre-K in Scarborough, which is, if you could look backwards in 25 years, is legacy building. Like that, there's very little places in the world where you can have impacts that far outlast your tenure. And creating something like pre-K is one. They've been trying to figure that out for 20 years. Since I've got to Maine, they've been trying to figure out how to get pre-K in Scarborough. I know that because I sat next to a lady who lived in Scarborough who desperately wanted pre-K in Scarborough when I first got here. And I was like, what? But here we are. I've been here for 20 years. I'm now in Scarborough myself, and we still don't have pre-K. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Freda. I think this is a no-brainer and we should go for it. So, but I would like to hear from other board members. So.
I'm gonna make a motion. You're not making a motion.
Oh,
You
no,
know-
don't make a motion yet, please.
We want to do it, talk more about doing it, let's just do it.
I would agree with, well, others that have spoken, but specifically Freyla, because I think you were talking about the robust model.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that does make the most sense. It certainly sets us up for success. And I mean, this is a mandate, like, this is it. So it's not like, I mean, we might as well get as much as we can out of it. And also, really serve the community of folks that need this and want this. My biggest concern is how we communicate it to the community, because, here we are asking, we will be asking for more money. And, this isn't, I just worry about the overall look. Look, they're asking for more. We just gave them this, I'm just really worried about, I would like us just be really, really thoughtful about that, because it looks like we are just asking for something else. And even though this is like a huge benefit, and as you said, it reduces special ed services later, the kids get early intervention. I mean, there are many well-known benefits to it. So I do support, there's so many things about it that I do support. And there's so many things about this that are frustrating, but I guess my biggest concern is just how we communicate it and what energy we put into it. But that being said, I really do support the robust model that Diane laid out because of the benefits to it.
Jillian, I just want to understand, we're not really asking taxpayers to foot the bill or leveraging state funds to build this program. Yeah.
Understand that. Yeah, I just don't think that the broader community will necessarily understand that. I mean, I think
I think can I just try to, I think what I'm hearing Jillian say, and I agree with you, I'm also worried about the public perception. I mentioned that last week. We've gone out and really said that right now, if we're gonna look at pre-K, it's not going to be right now. We're gonna focus on our kids now. And a year later, we're going to come back and say, well, here we are, we need pre-K, right? So I do worry about public perception too. And what I think I hear you saying is we have to be very sure in how we communicate this, that we are saying there's not an ask to the community because, and here's why. And then that we're able to explain that we're taking well, don't use taking advantage when you write this. We are utilizing, we're accessing funds that are available through the state, right? So that we word it, and this might be a really good opportunity for a Scarborough Living magazine article, right? This might be a really good opportunity for a community forum when we're talking about the funding formula, right? Like we can make sure that we're talking about this in the community, but it's really important to your point that we have really strong talking points that everybody feels confident in those.
maybe run it through, Copilot.
Yeah.
I think that just to weigh in on that point, because it's really important, Jillian, I think that it will be really easy in some ways to show the stark difference between you do nothing and you get an extra $11,000 in GPA, and oh, guess whose pocket's going to get picked for the rest of that, versus we do this other thing and now your tax bill is actually not going to go up as much as it would, because now we're going to be able to receive more funding from another source. So, I mean, I think it shouldn't be too hard to draw a fairly simple picture that says, this is of benefit to your pocketbook at the same time that, I mean, I guess the other question would be then, well, what about the long term? Then do you continue to get, is this a one-shot thing? And then next year our taxes are going to go up. You hear that a lot from folks who are worried about new investments. But again, as we've just said, like over time, you're going to be adding students, and at least for the next few years, depending on the formula and all of that, it's going to be of benefit to the town in terms of just plain pure math for tax relief, really.
Absolutely. And I really just want to make sure that we like proactively get out there with that messaging.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with some cunning graphics or something.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I wonder if it's better, not that this is the point of this discussion, but if there's like little videos the communications committee can make where maybe Kate gets to explain it, right, with graphics and, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
good.
yeah.
Put Kate on camera again, yeah.
Or Kate, spending time talking.
Everyone leaves the room.
No, I bet you'd have the most views out of anybody in Scarborough.
Care about their money.
I actually had somebody come up to me at the post office once when I first started going on the board meetings. I'm like, "You're famous." I'm like, "You think?" I think you may have me mixed up with someone else. No, cable TV, public TV. I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah, star of the show." But yeah, I think Jillian, I think you're absolutely spot on. You've got to make a simple argument for why this is a good plan financially. As well as all the other things. And the other little piece that I think it's little, but it's really important, is that with the extra funds, the ability to pre-hire somebody to work on that CDS transition, that's been our catch-22 all along. It's like, well, DOE says, yeah, we're going to step right up and pay for that admin for you. And we say, well, when can we have the admin? And they say on July 1st of the year that you start your program. And we say, that's too late. You can't, we can't build a program from July to September. it just, and not to mention the folks who signed their kids up for pre-K in April, right? That we've missed the boat so many times. So with this, I like the robust scenario. That's a good word. That gives us the opportunity to solve that problem too, right? To be able to put some money towards that need that's going to come down the road, whether we want it or not.
Yeah. All right, any other questions or thoughts? All right, John, go for it. Well, you said you're gonna make a motion.
Oh, okay, yeah, I would like to make a motion that we move forward with a robust plan to increase the students by 64, equaling total 80 total, generating near $700,000 for the pre-K program.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All in favor? And that shows unanimous. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Since you let me keep talking to you all night, I just wanted to mention that this now will be what you see at first reading in terms of the numbers that we're presenting. So that'll be baked into the proposal that we're presenting in the workshops. And then, of course, any refinements can happen like any other piece of the budget before we get to second reading.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, 13.0 is new business. 13.1, appointment of the middle school wrestling coach. I know the PDF was included in our materials. Is there anything?
Nothing to
outside?
add.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the middle school winter #2 wrestling coach as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is, all in favor? Thank you so much. It shows unanimous. Agenda item 14.0 is adjournment. Before I adjourn, I just draw the public's attention in this new agenda format. The upcoming meetings are listed, so everybody can follow along if they're looking for a full calendar. Thank you for that. Again, Cheryl. So if there are no objections, we will adjourn at 9:11 p.m. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.